Last year I was doing pretty well. I was good in school, I already have built a physique many people would like to have, and just now I had signed my first client on the side hustle I was working on. However, what my day-to-day life looked like wasn't what most people would expect. I constantly felt like I was falling behind. When I was not working or doing anything productive, I constantly felt guilty. And sometimes slowing down or actually treating myself like a human being didn't even come to my mind. If this feels like you, keep watching. Because look, this video isn't here to tell you you should or shouldn't be this way. This video is here for the people who know they can achieve great things, but ask themselves if there isn't a way without constantly feeling guilty and beating yourself up. Because I think there is a way, but it's not that straightforward like most people would think. I always assumed I would be more peaceful, happy, or feel more content when I've achieved more things, when I've reached more goals I set myself out to reach. However, the thing was, I already reached goals I said that would make me happy, but I still wasn't. What I didn't know was that there were two ways of thinking that constantly kept me in this state of longing for something that would never come. The first one is a bias we all have. It's called the impact bias, and it says that we expect good things to be better than they actually are, and we expect bad things to be worse than they actually are. So we overestimate the impact something has on our well-being. And that just means, maybe you know this moment when you expect a vacation to be great, to feel completely different than your day-to-day life. And when you get there, of course, it feels good, but it's not that great than you expected. And this happens all the time. With goals we want to reach, like for example for me it was when I signed my first copywriting client. I thought this would be this huge achievement that would make me feel completely different. However, it didn't. It felt good for the moment, but a few hours later or one day later, life just felt normal again. And it's the same with bad things that happen to you. Maybe you know the study of people who had an accident and now are in a wheelchair. Of course they felt worse, but a year later their well-being almost was at baseline again. And that was the first thing that kept me in this state of constantly beating myself up. Because I thought, okay, if I beat myself up, if I really go hard, maybe I will reach those goals faster. And then I will be somehow happier, maybe more peaceful, maybe more content. But what I missed was that the stuff I thought that would be really great is never that great that you think it will be. But what's even more important than knowing the impact bias is to know what you're actually chasing. Because there are two different types of goals we all have, but most of us get mixed up. And mixing those two types of goals up is ultimately the thing that keeps you from reaching one of them. And the two types of goals I'm talking about are external and internal goals. Most of us, we only have those external goals. Maybe we want to get rich, maybe we want to build a great physique, maybe we want to build a great relationship to someone. Those are external goals, and we get them mixed up with our internal goals. Because what we are often chasing isn't the thing we are actually chasing and saying we are chasing, like for example, getting financial freedom. What we are chasing is actually a feeling. For example, with financial freedom, you might be chasing the feeling of abundance or just feeling content. Or with building a great physique as a goal, we often are not even chasing this or to be healthy. We're often just chasing also this feeling of maybe feeling content or feeling more confident. You get what I mean? We often try to reach our internal goals through reaching an external goal. And sometimes this might work. Like for example, when you build a great relationship to someone, you will probably actually feel better in your day-to-day life. But it can also do the opposite for you. Like for example, when you chase the feeling of feeling content, satisfied or peaceful, something like that. But maybe you're chasing it through trying to get financial freedom. And this might sometimes work. When you have more money, when you have more things, it might be easier to feel more content. But often, like I said, it can do the opposite for you. Through trying to get rich, you build this lifestyle of constantly beating yourself up, constantly trying to stay productive and feeling guilty when you're actually letting yourself rest for once. Those habits might have benefits for the external goal of becoming financially free, but they actually make it less likely for you to reach these inner goals. And the solution now, of course, isn't to just stop being ambitious or stop having goals. The solution is to start getting clarity on what you actually want. To get clarity on what your internal and external goals are, and to ask yourself if they actually make sense. Because if you expect to feel content or peaceful through a lifestyle that makes you rich, but also makes you less content and less peaceful, of course, your expectations are off. And I know asking yourself those kinds of questions can be really hard, because you're doing one of the most uncomfortable things you can do. You're looking at your values through a critical lens. So the point that will really give you clarity and maybe free you from this feeling of constantly beating yourself up isn't watching another video on that. It's asking yourself what your inner and external goals are and if they make sense. And how you can do that is just by asking yourself what your external goal is right now, and then really digging deep why you have that goal. What feeling you actually want to get through reaching this goal. Why your unconscious thinks that this goal is worth reaching. That's the first question to get clarity. And the second one is to ask yourself if the thing you're trying to get through reaching this external goal, if the inner goal you try to reach by reaching the external goal, if this makes sense, if those two goals actually fit together. Like I said, I know this is hard, but doing this, asking yourself those kinds of questions, can be the most valuable thing you did for a long while.